Hello friends, it's Carla here today, and I am giving you a sneak peek of the new April release one day early. This is the floral stamp set that I'm using today, so you can get an idea of what is coming for April. And I've got a piece of the Fandom gold background paper that's in the paper pack. I've cut it down to fit an A2 size card, and I'm using some Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink, and I'm just gently rubbing that around the edges because I'm going to use some embossing powder, and I've got some Emerald Creek Gold Doubloon powder here. It melts really beautifully. It's quite a fine powder, and it just melts nice and smooth. So I wanted to have that all around the edge, and I just take my heat gun and heat that up, and it just melts really nice. So I end up doing just a couple passes on each edge, and it melts quite quickly and very nice and smooth. So that's a look at that powder there from Emerald Creek. And here is a look at the beautiful floral stamp set from Wild Whisper. This is really lovely. It has beautiful details in it, and I don't have a lot of floral stamp sets, so I was really excited to use this, and as soon as I saw it I knew I wanted to do some watercoloring. So I grabbed 3 images, and I am stamping on a Bristol smooth cardstock. Bristol is great as a smooth watercolor surface. It allows you to watercolor, and especially with the Zig clean color brush markers, they work lovely on it. And so what I'm doing is taking the Versamark ink, I'm inking up those stamps and stamping them with that press, and then I'm going over them with the gold doubloon powder. So after I heat set this is going to create just a lovely surface to watercolor on. And recently I had done a class, and one of the ladies in the class said she was struggling with using her zigs, so I was thinking about her when I made this video. So I thought, you know, I just really wanted to show how easy it is to use these. There's lots of different ways you can use the zig markers. So this is just one, and this is kind of a quick, easy way to color in your images. So I've got a couple different pinks. I just grabbed like a lighter shade, then a medium, and then a darker shade. And I just color in various areas of the flower. The embossing powder, after it's stamped, it creates a little well so that your water and your ink is really contained inside each little area, which makes it super easy. And after I layer on these 3, now you can just use the zigs alone and they will blend, but I really like going over them with a water. So if you didn't want to use a water brush, you could then take, at this point, the lighter color and go over them again, and that color would blend. But I decided I wanted more of a watercolor look. For this smaller rose, I've got a bit of a darker red, and I'm just adding a few little areas on the other flowers just to give the look of a variance in color. So here's an Altenew water brush, but there's lots of different brushes available. And I've got a tissue because what I start doing is going in the lighter area and I'm blending it, but I don't want it to blend into all one color. I do want to leave it with various degrees of light and dark. So when I get a little bit of color on that brush, I'm wiping it off so that it's simply blending the color and not mixing everything together, because otherwise you're just going to have it one layer of color, and I really wanted that watercolor look that has the degrees of color. And you can see this really blends out very easily on this Bristol paper, and you can definitely do it on watercolor paper as well, Right here I went over the line, so I easily was able to just take some clean water from the brush, wipe that up, and dab it with the tissue, and it lifts right off. So I'm just doing the same technique again with the smaller rose, and you can see just how quickly it really comes together. I don't usually spend a lot of time coloring images, but I like to have that look that your eye can quickly look at the image and see that there's shadows and highlights. Now I wanted to add a little bit more deeper color, so I grabbed a brown. You could also use gray, works good with reds, and just added a little bit in the corners, and this just gives it a little bit darker tone for those shadows. So looking at it, you can see that smaller rose by itself is just a little darker than the pinky ones. And I grabbed 2 yellows from my Zig markers and just started doing the exact same thing that I had with the pinks. So I've got some areas with the light, some areas with the darker, and then I'm just going to blend it out. And each time you change color, especially, you just want to make sure you wipe your brush off. It wipes off very easily, but you don't want to transfer that color if you want to keep one red and one a yellow. Otherwise you're going to have a little bit of orange in there, which is fine, but just make sure you wipe your brush in between if you don't want to transfer those colors. The zigs are really great because they have such a fine tip, and they are perfect for getting into those small little spots, and you really don't have to do too much blending. So here I've grabbed a couple greens, and I'm just coloring in parts of the leaves. This is this yellow green, which is nice and bright, and I wanted to keep some nice bright colors to match that gold powder. These floral stamps are going to be great for spring and summer, and I think for Mother's Day as well. And when you see the paper line and the cards that go with it, you are just going to be blown away. And I don't have them in front of me. I know there's paper. I'm pretty sure there's cards, but you'll be able to see once everything's released what is in that collection exactly. So I'm just taking the green shadow here, which is a bit of a blue green, and adding it to the little tiny leaves and the buds of the flowers and some of the areas of the bigger leaves. And then just blending that without completely mixing it. So some of those areas stay light and some stay dark. I really had fun using the Fandom collection this month. In March, it had so many different elements, and I created 4 different 12 by 12 layouts, as well as this card, and I still have some paper left over, and that was just with a 12 by 12 paper pack, and it's amazing how far that went. I was really pleased. So you can see how nice and bright that Bristol cardstock is, and back of those flowers. It's not a true white, but it has a brightness to it, and especially with that gold embossing powder, it just really pops against that. I have a small amount of a darker green that I just used in some of the smaller areas, and then I'm going to fussy cut the images out. And so when you are fussy cutting, you just want to remember you're moving your paper more than moving your scissors. So you can see that I'm twisting the paper back and forth, and I'm not making any huge choppy motions, and then you end up with a nicely cut image with a nice border, similar to what you would have if you were die cutting that. So this is a Hello Bluebird stamp set with lots of sentiments, and I thought this would be great to pair with the floral stamp set. I'm just putting it in my stamp press, and then I'm going to emboss it. So when I get it centered here, and then I'm just closing the door, picking it up, and using the Versamark ink to lay down a layer of sticky ink. And I end up doing that 2 or 3 times, but I only showed once. And then I've got some black cherry aroma powder from Emerald Creek. This is a fine black powder, and it actually smells like black cherry. It is amazing. So you can smell it while you're heating it, you can smell it in the jar, and then even after. So it's really nice. And I have the new Tim Holtz mini archival inks. I debated whether I wanted to get those, but I'm really happy with them. I love having the archival inks on hand to do anything that you want a permanent ink for, and having them in those little containers works well. So I die cut some elements out of that Tim Holtz metallic confections paper, and then I've got a couple different sizes of the Xyron sticker maker, and these are really neat. So Xyron had sent these to us to see how we like to use them, and decided to use that with this project. So I'm just putting 3 different elements through, so I'm kind of conserving my sticker paper. It was very easy to push it through. It's very basic, and these are not refillable, so you use up the sticker paper that is inside, and then the outside is recyclable, which is nice because then you don't feel like you're throwing a plastic thing in the garbage. So the larger one was large enough that I could stick through my larger elements, and once you stick them through, then you just rip them off at the back. I really liked this sticker maker for the metallic elements especially. I find that whenever I use liquid glue with the metallic cardstock, I always end up getting a little bit smudged on it, and then it leaves a little bit of a film on top from the liquid glue. So this was great because it just had a sticky residue on the back. It didn't transfer to the front, and I found I just really needed to make sure that I had pushed down on the paper element that I was creating the sticker with, so that the sticky stuff adhered completely, and then just pulling it off. So it was very easy and very quick, and I think these will be really great for the metallic elements, as well as any smaller kind of elements that you want to glue onto your cards and scrapbook pages. It really worked nicely, and I hadn't used it before, so it was nice to use that. So we've got all our elements stuck onto the front. You can see how quick that front of that card came together. And then I wanted to stick these 2 completed images inside with the flowers, and so that made it very easy to stick on, and those were good and stuck. They weren't coming off, which is great. So then I am adding some of the sequins from the Fandom collection, and these are created by Spiegelmom Scraps, and she has some amazing sequin collections, and she does a lot of coordinated collections for Wild Whisper as well. So just adding a few of these around, these completed the card, and we have just a really nice hello card to send to someone. So I hope that you were able to get some tips for using zig markers and creating some floral looks with your markers and your stamps, and I hope you'll check out the floral collection coming in April. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'd love for you to like and subscribe.